you all for being here tonight. It's great to see so many faces that we haven't seen in a long time. People have traveled from far distances to be here tonight to honor Natalie. I would say that probably 80% of the people in this room we did not know 4 years ago when we moved to Sedona. And Sedona had touched Natalie's heart in the 1990s when she came here for a day trip when visiting her sister who lived in the Phoenix area at the time. And when Natalie and I met, we met in 2008, October the 30th, I believe, was 2008. And we married on October 17th of 2009, hence the reason why we're hosting this event on our anniversary. When it was time approaching Natalie's 40th birthday, I said, where would you like to go for your 40th birthday? And really anywhere in the world was the option. Without hesitation, she said, Sedona. And I said, what is Sedona? I had never heard of Sedona. I had never seen a picture of Sedona. So I started researching, and I saw the beauty in Sedona. And we came here for her 40th birthday in 2015. And it was a magical experience. Strengthened our relationship in ways that we never knew were possible. And we returned to Texas after her birthday, and when it came time for her birthday the next year, 2016, we decided that we were going to come back to Sedona. And at the time we brought our only child, Julia Grace, more affectionately known as Jules these days. And we had another amazing experience. And at that time, we launched our business, Landio, and we said to each other, if we worked really hard over the next 5 years, maybe one day we could move to Sedona. And then we went back to Texas and got busy and got to work. And we didn't really talk about Sedona that much. When we did return back to Texas, though, we found out that Natalie was pregnant with our second child, Champ. So Champ visited Sedona before he was even born. Life went on. We had a third child, Maverick, in 2019. And life was good in Texas. Our business was growing. Things were happening. It was a lot of excitement. And in January of 2021, Natalie started to experience some health challenges. After a lot of investigation, we discovered that the home that we had been living in Texas was full of toxic mold, and it was causing her immune system to go haywire, and she was literally fighting for her life. I offered to send her anywhere that she wanted to go for healing, and she said she had a dream, and her dream was to go to Sedona. Now I'll back up for just a minute, because in July of 2020, the children had asked they said, Daddy, can we get a dog? And my response was, the only way that we're going to get a dog is if that dog could serve a purpose. And we knew of someone who had these protection dogs, these trained German shepherds. And we asked them how do we obtain one of those? And he helped us through that process, and we had this dog brought in from Slovakia in July of 2020. And when the dog arrived, it had been fully trained for a year and a half, and it was a female, which he said was good for the children. And the dog's name was Linda. And Natalie said, I do not want to call the dog Linda. And when we were in Sedona in 2016, we decided that if we had another daughter, we were going to name her Sedona. We had 2 other boys. So we had this name left over. And we thought, you know what? We're just going to name the dog Sedona. So we did. We named the dog Sedona. And for a year, we were running around our house and our property there in Texas saying Sedona, 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 Sedona. With no intention of moving to Sedona. I wanted to move to Colorado. And but Natalie had this dream that she needed to come to Sedona for healing. And she arrived the end of July in 2021, or 2021. And within a week, she felt transformed. Her health did a complete 180. So we moved to Sedona. Just a little over 5 years from when we made that commitment in 2016. There are people who will say that if Sedona doesn't want you to be here, it'll let you know. And it was clear that Sedona had been calling to us. And Natalie heard that call, and she answered, and we followed her. And it has been a magical experience being here in the, I would say, without a doubt, the best years of her life were here in Sedona. And the best years of our family. You know, there's something to be said about, you may have heard this statement or quote, about measuring the life in your years versus the years in your life. And Natalie lived fully. She had a lot of life in her years. And throughout the time that I knew her, which was starting in 2018, I was amazed at how people of different walks of life, some that just met her for the first time, others that knew her for many years, would describe her, and some of the adjectives that they used were radiant, kind-hearted, magnetic, captivating, gracious, classy, inspiring, passionate, empathic, charming, beautiful, enchanting, sophisticated, spirited, perceptive, thoughtful, gentle, nurturing, heart-centered, soulful, intuitive, generous, selfish, selfless. She was selfless. She would do anything to help others. I've also heard her described as a light worker, an earth angel. It's been said that the eyes are the window to the soul. And anybody that has looked into Natalie's eyes can attest how mesmerizing and captivating they are. We're here to celebrate, so I'm not going to spend time talking about the struggles. Over the past almost 2 years now, you're all well aware of what she went through, what our family went through. And there is so much love in this room that has been shown to our family, to Natalie. So much support from the Sedona community, from family and friends. The school community has been phenomenal. I refer to her as my leading lady. And our life is a movie. Like if we could live our life like a movie, what would it be? What would the story be? And at the core of it is a love story. Natalie and I found the love, the unconditional love that we had been seeking and searching for all our lives. And from that love sprouted these 3 beautiful children. We spent the last 3.5 months of her life in Mexico. And I thought that she was going to overcome the challenges that she faced. It got to a point where I think I was probably the only one. I remember being at the St. Aviv Medical Institute, which is a phenomenal place. I would highly recommend you consider it if you ever are in that need. And the people there were preparing me. But I wouldn't listen. I remember the gentleman who was the head of the mind-body department. We were standing over Natalie, and she was struggling, and he was looking at me, and he was nodding his head up and down that I should consider the potential. And I steadfastly held firm and would not nod in agreement, as if that were going to change things. Natalie said to me in February of this year, when we were at the Mayo Clinic Hospital in Phoenix, that if this were to be the outcome, that the love she experienced from our family and from the community, and the bond that was created and the strength of that bond would be worth it. On the morning of May 27th, she was going to have a procedure done that required her to travel by ambulance an hour away. And she'd had a rough night the night before. And we had to cancel that procedure and that trip. And she was having a lot of complications. And I went over to her in the morning, and I was her caregiver the last month and a half. I was living there at the Stevie Medical Institute with her. And I went over to her. I whispered into her ear. And I said, Natalie, I'll always love you. I'll always cherish you. I'll always honor you. I want you to stay. But if it's time for you to go, I accept it. And I kissed her, and she kissed me back. And I walked out the room, and she was going, that was her last breath. Our children had returned to Sedona for the last week of school to graduate with the class. And even though they were another country away, they knew something had happened. Immediately, the text messages and phone calls came. I wasn't about to tell them over the phone. Natalie had wished to be cremated, which was done there in Mexico, and I came back to Sedona to see the children and tell them in person. And immediately after her transition, and that was the first time that I ever told her that I accepted it, if it was time. But I immediately started to research and listen to books, audiobooks, the whole way back about connecting with the other side, about the transitioning and spirit guides and mediums, and I consumed everything I could. And one of the books I listened to talked about an analogy. They used an analogy. They said, hold up a sheet of paper. Hold up a piece of paper. That piece of paper has two sides. The other side is that close. I asked Natalie, and I now became just as determined to connect with her on the other side as I was to save her life. And I asked her to show me, to communicate with me, with signs. I requested rainbows at day and shooting stars at night. And I would ask around to people who I trusted. I said, do you know of anybody that could possibly guide me in connecting with Natalie? And I was referred to several different individuals. And I've had multiple conversations with them and with Natalie. And one could dismiss that and say, come on, that doesn't exist. They're guessing or kind of playing into your vulnerabilities. And I could see how that may be an argument. But I'll give you just one example to show you that it's real. So as I mentioned, I asked Natalie to communicate with rainbows. Well, there was a period maybe about 2 months ago when there was a couple storms that had come into Sedona. And we have a view to the east, looking towards uptown Sedona. And it was a Thursday and a Friday. On the Thursday, the left leg of a rainbow had formed. And it looked like it had the potential to maybe complete half of a rainbow or maybe even a full rainbow. And the children and I were out on the balcony and we were saying, "Mommy, come on, you can do it. We know you can do it. Show us that rainbow." And the rainbow on the Thursday disappeared. The next day, another leg of that rainbow appeared. Again, the children and I went out on the balcony. "Mommy, you can do it. Show us that rainbow." It started to strengthen, and then it started to weaken again. And then it started to strengthen again. And we're out there cheering her on. "Mommy, show us that rainbow. Mommy, show us that rainbow." And then it disappeared. The next day I had a session with one of those guides. And I told no one about this experience that we had, the children and I, those 2 days prior. And during this almost 2-hour session, conversation with Natalie, there were a lot of things that were said that were very you could tell that there was obviously a connection taking place there. Now, some of the things that were said, one could say, well, they could have known this by another way, or so forth. Until about an hour and a half in, and she said that Natalie communicated to her that she's so frustrated with these effing rainbows. She said she keeps trying to make these rainbows and she keeps messing it up. How would that be possible for her to say that of all the things? Nobody else knew that. I didn't text that to anybody. I didn't call anybody with that information. So if that is the case, if that means that there is something to the ability to connect with the other side. And if we're able to connect with the other side, that means that Natalie is still here. She has just transformed. She's on the other side. And there are many people that have contacted me and I've spoken with who said that Natalie has visited them. Natalie has connected with them. Natalie has connected with them in dreams that they have felt her presence. And if that's the case, I think that it's with high probability that Natalie's here tonight. We love you, Natalie. On our 13th anniversary, Natalie and I went to the Sound Bites Grill in Uptown to see Esteban perform for the first time together. On our anniversary, it was a beautiful experience. And we thought, wow, wouldn't it be special if for this anniversary, this celebration of life, this honoring of Natalie, that Esteban and Teresa Joy and their crew could perform. And there was a lot of divine alignment that came into place for this to all come together tonight. And so again, we thank you for being here. Thank you, Three Trees. Incredible performance. We're excited for what is going to transpire next. And I put together a list of songs that had a connection with Natalie and I that I thought would be appropriate for this evening. And I'm just going to... Esteban, are we ready to get started? Okay. So we're going to start with a song that many of you are probably familiar with. And so as we begin celebrating our beloved Natalie, we invite you to take a deep breath. Open your hearts. The first song we'll share is Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. A timeless piece written in 1971 by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. Over the years, it has become one of the most meaningful songs ever recorded, a musical journey that begins softly and rises into a powerful crescendo, much like the journey of life itself. Its lyrics speak of reflection, awakening, and the realization that true treasures are found not in what we own, but in love, kindness, and the light that we share with others. mentioned that really wasn't in my cards to move to Sedona in 2019, 2020 area. I really wanted to move to Colorado. We had done more business in Colorado than any other state. I loved Colorado. The mountains are very mesmerizing, and Natalie had never been to Colorado. And we had planned for her to go to Colorado in 2019, and we found out she was pregnant with Maverick, and we decided we were going to wait till 2020, and then the coronavirus showed up and put our summer trip to Colorado on hold. But in September of 2020, we decided, look, who knows what's going to happen with this crazy world we're living in. We got to go to Colorado. So in late September of 2020, we went to Colorado, Natalie for the first time. And I thought, if I'm going to convince Natalie to move to Colorado, I got to take her someplace special. And Natalie, anybody that knows Natalie, she has very good taste. She's got good taste in clothing. She's got good taste in jewelry. She's got incredible style. So I needed to up the game if I'm going to convince Natalie to move to Colorado. So I thought, okay, where could I take Natalie that's going to woo her? And I thought, Aspen. So we went to Aspen for Natalie's first trip to Colorado. And the next song that we'd like to share with you is a song that Natalie loved, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. Written by Stevie Nicks in 1973 while she was living in Aspen, Colorado. At the time, Stevie and Lindsey Buckingham were struggling to make ends meet. Their first album hadn't succeeded, and they were unsure if they could continue making music. Sitting high in the Rockies, surrounded by snow and silence, Stevie looked out over the mountains and began to reflect on her life, on change, time, and the courage to keep going when the path isn't clear. Out of that moment of uncertainty came Landslide, a song about transformation, resilience, and learning to embrace life's seasons with grace. It became the turning point that changed everything for Fleetwood Mac, saving their music and setting them on the path to greatness. When we first visited Aspen, when Natalie first experienced Colorado, like Stevie, she was moved by the beauty and spirit of those mountains. It feels fitting that this song, born in the same place that once inspired her, now reminds us of her own strength, her courage, and the way she faced life's changes with such love and grace. As we listen to Landslide, let's reflect on the mountains we all climb, the love that carries us, and the beauty of every season along life's voyage. Wow. I think Natalie's having a good time.
Hi, Natalie.
You rock, Natalie.
So we talked about Aspen and going to Colorado for the first time in September 2020. Well, it was going to be our anniversary, and I said, okay, well, let's just go back to Aspen. So we went back for our anniversary in October of 2020. And many of these photos that you see are from that visit. And I about had her on board for moving to Colorado. If it was Aspen, of course. So I had to up the game. I even asked my mother and sister to go out there and look for some rental properties for us. I was going to strike while the iron's hot. And then the situation occurred in January of 2021 with her health decline and the toxic mold in Texas. And looking back on it and having the perspective of being able to look back, I couldn't imagine living any other place than Sedona. Colorado is a nice place to visit, but Sedona is our home. We love it here. But I wanted the children to experience Colorado. And so for our 15-year anniversary last year, we went to Telluride. And it was our children's first time to Colorado, and our first time together as a family in Colorado. And Natalie had just undergone a bunch of radiation treatments, and her bleeding had stopped, and she was feeling good and looking good and had lots of energy, and we were literally on top of a mountain. And we stayed on top of a mountain, in Mountain Village. But this journey, this voyage has been marked with lots of peaks and valleys. And even though some of those valleys are deep, you can find beauty in the valleys. Just go to the Grand Canyon. And we had some family pictures taken in Telluride on our anniversary, on our 15-year anniversary. One of those is right here next to our family. And the photographer just happened to have a husband who was a private pilot. And we drove to Telluride from Sedona. And it was a rough, long ride, and I thought, okay, maybe somehow there's some divine miracle, and maybe there's somebody that has a plane sitting around that we could hop a ride on for Natalie to get back to Sedona and not have to do the 9-hour car ride. So I asked the photographer, I said, does your husband happen to know of anybody that might have a plane that could take Natalie and our daughter back to Sedona? And she said, well, we have a plane. And my husband, because he's in the process of obtaining his next degree of pilot's license, he has to fly. He has to get some flight time. And because he doesn't have that license yet, we can't charge you. But you can reimburse us for the gas. So for $400 in gas, Natalie and Julia Grace got to take a plane from the Telluride Airport to the Sedona Airport. And when we returned, we were getting prepared to go to Texas to celebrate Natalie's mother's 80th birthday. It was going to be the first time that Natalie went back to Texas since we moved to Sedona. But when we watched that plane take off, that was the last time I remember Natalie feeling great. Because when she returned, things went downhill rapidly. We had to cancel our trip for her mother's 80th birthday to Texas. And many of you know the story of what transpired since then. When we were driving to Telluride together as a family, and while we were in Telluride driving around, and one of the songs that we listened to was Take Me Home, Country Roads by John Denver. A song that celebrates the beauty of nature, the feeling of belonging, and the longing to return home to the places that hold our hearts. Written in 1971, it became one of John Denver's most beloved songs, an anthem of love for the land and for the sense of peace that comes from being surrounded by mountains and open skies. Now, I like to surprise Natalie. And when we took that first trip to Aspen in September of 2020, I didn't tell her until we arrived there. But we actually stayed at John Denver's guest house. The very place where he wrote and recorded many of his iconic songs. We could feel the magic in that space, the warmth of the wood, the calm of the mountains, the spirit of the music still lingering in the air. Natalie was completely at home there. She loved the mountains, the views, the light, and the connection to something timeless. That trip became one of her most cherished memories, filled with laughter and music and a deep sense of peace. As we listen to Country Roads, may it remind us of the beauty of home, not just the physical places we return to, but the feeling of being truly known, deeply loved, and forever connected to those who journey with us in spirit. Next is Thank God I'm a Country Boy. Just kidding. But I was born a country boy in Missouri. And there's a saying that, give me a child to the age of 7 and I'll show you the man. And Natalie and I both had a lot of parallel experiences growing up. And there was a lot of heartbreak prior to the age of 7. So I wanted to, as I'm sure she did as well, to some degree, wanted to shed that country boy, girl. And I eventually moved to the big city of Chicago. And had lots of what I guess could be materially measured as success there. But around 2005, I met some people from Texas, and I started to meet more people from Texas, and I went and visited Texas. And I was struck by the character of the Texas people, the Texans. And for over 2 years, I had this idea in my mind that I was going to move from Chicago and I was going to move to Texas and I was going to find a Texas woman, a real woman, who would eventually be my wife. And a series of events transpired, and I had started a marketing firm, and I spent about a year and a half trying to find my first client. And I was living out in California at the time, and somebody introduced me to a company in Texas, this energy company in the Galleria. And they had the whole top floor of this office building. And I had had so much professional rejection at this point, I didn't have a lot of faith in anything coming of this, but they were willing to fly me down there. And so I thought, okay, I'll just give it a shot and see what happens. And I took the elevator from the lobby to the 15th floor, and then you had to take an elevator, a private elevator, from the 15th floor up to the 16th floor, and that elevator opened up into the lobby of this energy company. And when I went and introduced myself, the first person I met was Natalie. And that energy company became my first client. And Natalie was a Texas woman. Is a Texas woman. She was born in the panhandle of Texas, in Plainview, on April 18th, 1975. Her grandfather and her father were cotton farmers. And her mother and her stepfather have joined us tonight from Texas, as well as her two sisters. Thank you for making the journey. We all love Natalie. So our next song takes us back to where it all began for Natalie. The wide open skies of the Texas Panhandle. Natalie was born and raised in Texas, where the sunsets stretch forever and country music plays like a heartbeat in the background. Shortly after we met, the next year, she took me to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I had never been to a rodeo before. I didn't even really know what a rodeo was. Wow, what a sight, what an experience. And it's not just one night, it's like weeks long. And on our wedding, I wore cowboy boots and a custom metal belt buckle. The song we're about to share, Amarillo by Morning, was written by Terry Stafford and Paul Fraser in 1973 and was made famous by George Strait in 1982. It's a rodeo song on the surface, but at its heart, it's about perseverance, independence, and the beauty of living with courage and grace no matter what life brings. Those are the very qualities that define Natalie. She loved deeply, lived freely, and carried that unmistakable Texas spirit and charm with her wherever she went. As we listen to Amarillo by Morning, may it bring us back to Texas, to Natalie's roots, her warmth, and the joyful way she inspired everyone around her to embrace life wholeheartedly. next song is You Raise Me Up. Originally written and composed by the Norwegian-Irish duo Secret Garden in 2002. The song was inspired by the idea that we are lifted by love, faith, and one another. We can rise above anything. It has since been recorded by over 100 artists around the world, but no matter who sings it, its message remains timeless and pure. It's a song that Natalie and I would play for one another, because we often would lift each other up, raise each other up. The lyrics remind us that when life feels heavy, love gives us the strength to stand tall again, to find peace and courage in the presence of those who lift our spirits. Natalie had that gift. She raised people up, not just with her words, but with her presence, her laughter, her kindness, her faith, and her love, her unconditional love. She had a way of reminding everyone that even in life's hardest moments, beauty and grace could still be found. I remember with the times we spent in the various treatment facilities in Sedona and Mexico, that Natalie would be the cheerleader for everyone else that was there. She would be asking people, are you meditating? Are you connecting with Source? And people would come to her as if she was part of the healing process there. That was important to her. That was part of her selfless qualities. And even when she was going through the most difficult of times, she was concerned about the others around her. As we listen to Raise You Up, You Raise Me Up, let it fill the space with the same light that Natalie carried. A reminder that her love continues to lift us and that her spirit will always help us rise. life is full of unexpected things, and if you would have asked me 1 year ago today that we would be doing this tonight, I thought you would be crazy. We're not the authors of the script of our lives. And I'm going to ask to maybe go off script a minute here. Are we Esteban, was that it? The finale. Oh, that wasn't the finale? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'll save this request for after the finale then. Or maybe I should ask it before. Could we do a little intermezzo? Well, my daughter and I were just the other day, we were out and we've had posters and flyers around town letting people know, because Natalie knew a lot of people, and a lot of people knew Natalie, and we wanted them to be a part of this and celebrate her life and honor her. And I was talking with a young lady, and she saw the poster, and she said, "Oh my, I just saw Esteban in concert. It was amazing." She said, "It was like he was channeling Elvis." Now, Natalie had planned to go to an Elvis concert with her mother, an Elvis impersonator concert. And she had been taking her mother to one previously in Texas. Natalie's mother loves Elvis. And she made the trip here from Texas, drove here to be here tonight with us. So I have a special request, if you could just channel a little bit of Elvis in between now and the finale. Is that possible?
So this is an ancient song brought to life. And let's see if I can remember how to play it. It's been a while. And I'm going to just, we'll see. Anyway, it's beautiful. And the words are just incredible. I mean, they are just beautiful words. And it fits this moment, this evening about love and cherish and commitment and ongoing love no matter what. And if Natalie can come and sit on my knee tonight and Elvis at the same time, let's play Love Me Tender for Natalie by way of Elvis. And we had some great times in Las Vegas when we were headlining there. We played at the Las Vegas Hilton before it became the Westgate. And guess who played at the Las Vegas Hilton for 10 years? Elvis. And I felt his spirit in that room every night. I tell you, it was like the man's soul was there. And many a time I asked him to come up and play songs, sit on my knee, and help me play some of the Elvis songs. And it got so intense sometimes that everybody's hair stood up and the goose pimples were like raging on people. It's like Elvis was there. You couldn't see him, but you sure could feel him. So Elvis, we're going to hang out here for another song and play Love Me Tender, one of your greatest ballads, an old Civil War song to honor all the heroes of the North and the South battle and struggle for freedom and slavery eradication back in 1861 to 1865. And we're going to play this song for Natalie and for all of you. And let's see if Elvis and Natalie can sit on my knee and help us play. Here we go.
Thank you for doing that. I remember watching an interview with Esteban, and he talked about that channeling when he plays music. He said when he picks up the guitar, it's like sometimes he's been playing it for 1,000 years. I think once a month, Esteban and Teresa Joy are here in Sedona. Highly recommend you support them. I think you have an upcoming concert at the Musical Instrument Museum in December. You can visit their website and check out their YouTube channel. They have some amazing videos that they produced. Several of them were shot here in Sedona. So now for the finale. The final song of the evening is a song that we played a lot over these past 2 years. The title alone is representative of what we were trying to accomplish. Fix You by Coldplay. Written in 2005 by Chris Martin as a message of comfort and love, the song was inspired by his desire to lift someone up through deep loss and pain. We all know what that's like. To offer light when everything feels dark. Shed many tears to this song. Its lyrics, the lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Reminds us that love endures even when the words fall short. Natalie had a heart that healed others. She was the one who brought calm to chaos, laughter to sadness, and hope to anyone who needed it. Even in the hardest times, she led with love and light. As we listen to this finale of Fix You, may we let the music wash over us, reminding us that love continues beyond this life, that light always finds its way home, and that Natalie's spirit will live on for eternity. sincerely appreciate you being with us here tonight. That was an amazing performance. Thank you, Three Trees, Esteban, Teresa Joy, and your band. Thank you to everybody who traveled from long distances to be here with us tonight, to all your prayers and support. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. She's just on the other side. If you feel her presence, she visits you in a dream, be open to that. Invite it. You see a rainbow or a shooting star, think of her, or whatever other sign that you may ask for. Natalie had all these characteristics and incredible attributes here on this earthly realm that would make sense that she would carry that over to the other side. We love you, Natalie. We hope that you're pleased with the performance tonight. Must have been amazing to sit on Esteban's lap with Elvis. We didn't know that one was in the cards tonight. Maybe we'll do this again next year. Make this an annual thing every October 17th. So, in closing, Natalie really loved each one of you, and I know that you loved her and still do. So on behalf of myself and my family and Natalie, we thank you. And we'll call that a night. I do a standing ovation, please, for the amazing artists that performed here tonight.